Every April, over 5 billion tulip flower bulbs bloom on more than 14,500 hectares of farmland in the Netherlands. It is the Dutch's pride, and more than 59 million cut tulips are exported to America each year. But those flowers don't go to your home straight from the field. They are mostly from tulip greenhouses where bulbs are stored and triggered to flower based on orders. 1.5 months before the bulb harvest, farmers cut off the blooms to focus the plant's energy on bulb development rather than the flowers. The cut flowers are left on the ground to decompose and act as a natural fertilizer. Bulb harvesting usually takes place from mid-June to late July. They are lifted from the ground using machines that gather the nets they were planted in. This particular truck even has a cleaning system, so all the bulbs are nice and clean with minimal damage. After harvest, the bulbs are taken to the facilities, where they're washed and dried for about 24 hours. Then, only large bulbs are further graded for cultivation. After that, they are stored in cooling rooms for 11 to 17 weeks at 51.8 degrees Fahrenheit to mimic winter conditions. And the LED lights will trick the bulbs into preparing for spring regardless of the weather outside. Finally, once the tulips are fully grown, they are harvested, cut and packaged, ready to be shipped worldwide. This farming model contributes over $651 million to the Dutch economy each year and ensures that the Netherlands remains the tulip capital of the world. Can you guess which vegetables Americans eat the most? It's the potatoes. Although the US produced more than 22 million tons of potatoes in 2022, they still imported $1.41 million of potatoes from Europe, particularly Spain. But major EU potato producers like Germany, contributing roughly 10 million tons annually, only export within the EU. This is likely because potato quality can suffer during long journeys. Unlike the US, where large farms dominate potato production, the EU relies on a mix of big and small farms. This small farm in the UK pays its potato pickers around £8.07 per hour, with each worker averaging 340 pounds collected daily. However, big commercial farms, like those in Lower Saxony in Germany, have started using modern harvesters to meet the increasing market demand. They can dig 12 to 18 rows of potatoes at once and harvest 15 tons every 5 minutes at peak season. In 2023, Europe produced over 60 million tons of potatoes. One of the most famous products made from potatoes is the potato chip. At the potato chips factory, this 20-ton truck takes half an hour to unload over 50,000 pounds of freshly picked potatoes. The processing of potato chips begins with washing and peeling the potatoes. They are then sliced into thin rounds using high-speed slicers. These slices are washed again to remove excess starch and then dried. This process is crucial for achieving the desired crispiness. The potato slices are then fried in hot oil at 360 degrees Fahrenheit for 3 minutes. After frying, excess oil is removed and the chips are seasoned with various flavors. What are your favorite potato chips? Finally, the potato chips are packaged and boxed to retain freshness. The US has many huge sugar beet stations like these in northern Minnesota or North Dakota, but it is just the third largest producer in the world. Leading the world's sugar beet production is France, which produced over 31 million tons in 2022. This is mainly because France has the perfect temperature of between 28 and 65 degrees Fahrenheit, so sugar beets can be harvested and stored without rotting. These large-scale high-tech harvesters gently remove the leaves and lift the beets with minimum damage out of the ground. Then they are pre-cleaned and loaded onto trucks, heading to one of the beet stations owned by a sugar company like Crystal Union. Here, the temperature of the beets is monitored regularly. If it starts to climb up, they will shut down the sugar beet campaign temporarily. Nearly 300 trucks come here to deliver tens of thousands of tons of beets every week. Each station has a capacity of about 600,000 tons and only receives sugar beets from September to January to make sugar all year round. The process begins with washing the harvested beets to remove soil and debris. The clean beets are then sliced and immersed in hot water in extraction towers. This is where sugar is leached out to form raw juice. It is then purified and undergoes evaporation to become a thick syrup in these large tanks. This syrup is crystallized by boiling with seed crystals. Once formed, the sugar is further separated in a centrifuge, forming white granulated sugar after 7 hours. Then it's dried, cooled, and stored in huge sugar silos until packing. It is estimated that about 4 beet plants are processed for 1 pound of sugar. Italy is in the top 3 of the world's largest tomato growers. As one of the nation's most important products, tomatoes here come in more than 10,000 diverse varietals, such as the special San Marzano grown exclusively in the mineral-rich volcanic soil of Campania. During the late summer harvest, mechanical harvesters drive around the field and gently shake the plants to dislodge ripe tomatoes. In 2022, about 5.5 million tons of tomatoes were produced and processed in Italy, which amounts to about 15% of the world's production and 56% of the European crop. The most ubiquitous and globally recognized product derived from tomatoes is canned tomatoes. At the processing facility, tomatoes undergo mini washes to remove dirt and pesticides. Then they are sorted several times by colors using advanced optical sorting technology, by quality and by size. Next, the tomatoes are heated and scored by slitter knives, so they're easier to peel under water jets. Then the peeled tomatoes are diced into cubes and go into these sterilized cans. Some smaller tomatoes go directly into the cans without dicing. They are conveyed onwards to be topped with pre-made tomato sauces pre-made in the factory. Finally, it's sealed and distributed to markets across Europe and the world. Europe produces approximately 6 million tons of onions annually, and the province of Flevoland in the Netherlands is the largest producer here. Although this onion yield isn't as much as the US, it is the second largest onion exporter in the world, exporting over 1.7 million tons every year. Common onions are sown from March to May and harvested in July and August, when about 2/3 of the onion can be seen above the ground. Then farmers cut off the top in a process called topping and lay it in windrows. After a week, the outer skin will toughen and the moisture content is reduced, prolonging shelf life. After that, big harvesters are used to gather the onions, remove soil and excess leaves, and then put them in bins or trailers. One of the most famous onion products is dehydrated onion flakes, which are used a lot in restaurants. After unloading, the process begins with peeling and washing the onions. After that, they are sliced into uniform pieces. These slices are then dried at about 158 degrees Fahrenheit for several hours and ground into onion flakes. Finally, it's packaged and distributed to stores. Faced with a competitive agricultural market, growing and trading conventional agricultural products will not bring too much profit. Therefore, farmers have processed their agricultural products into products with unique flavors to attract the market. Today's video will be a journey to discover how farmers harvest and process tons of agricultural products. Starting today's list are raisins. Besides the attractive flavor, the raisin production process is equally unique. To produce 1 pound of raisins, more than 4 pounds of fresh grapes are needed. Of course, not every type of grape can be made into raisins. They must be seedless grapes, dry easily and not stick together when stored. For raisins to be harvested, they must be around 21 to 23 bricks. Grapes are picked starting in late August and continuing through September. Workers pick grapes by hand and place them on paper trays spread on the ground between rows of grapes. Depending on the weather, the grapes are left to dry on trays for 2 to 4 weeks. During this period, the moisture content of the grapes drops from 75% to less than 15%, and the color of the fruit turns purple. Paper trays are arranged around the raisins to form bundles when the fruit is dry. The grape rolls are collected and stored in crates before being transported by truck to the raisin processing plant. Farmers can also use mechanized harvesting vehicles to speed up the harvesting process. In California, farmers produce traditional raisins by drying Thompson seedless grapes on paper trays. In direct sunlight, this drying process produces the familiar caramel-colored raisins. At this farm, when the grapes reach the right amount of sugar, farmers will cut off the water supply and raisins right there. Berries dried by this method retain their deliciousness without taking on any undesirable flavors due to sunburn. Once the leaves turn brown and wilt, it's the right time to harvest. Farm equipment is operated by a team of highly skilled farm workers. The machine moves the vines back and forth, vibrating plastic bars to break up the raisins. The raisins then fall and are collected on a conveyor belt below the harvester. The trellis system has helped increase the yield of raisins dried on the tree, increase mechanical harvesting, and reduce the use of manual labor. Shaking also helps minimize damage to the vine as the harvester separates the raisins from the vine. When they arrive at the raisin processing plant, they are poured into a screen system and shaken to remove dirt and other debris. The young grapes are removed using a suction device, and the raisins are separated from the stem by shaking. Standard raisins will be packaged for transport to the market. Next, we also come to persimmon growing season in Japan. In order for persimmon trees to grow well, farmers often prune the tops of persimmon trees to encourage the buds to grow and branch. Persimmons are ready to harvest from September to late November. Some experts say that persimmons will be fully ripe after the first frost of the season. The color of the persimmon will vary from light orange-yellow to dark orange. At 7 a.m., farmers start harvesting persimmons from the trees. A soft mat is placed on the ground to avoid damaging the persimmon. Farmers remove leaves and branches from the upper part of persimmons right in the garden. After being harvested, persimmons are loaded onto trucks and taken to the processing facility. Here, the persimmon selection process takes place. rotten and bruised persimmons will be discarded. Standard persimmons continue to move to the size sorting machine. The system automatically classifies roses according to the hole size of the roller. Persimmons are cooled and stored at a cool temperature of 1.5 degrees to be ready for the next processing process. Workers cut the top of a persimmon with a cutter. The persimmon skin is quickly removed using an automatic peeler. They continue to be hung on specialized hooks for hanging dried persimmons and fixed. After finishing the process in the natural drying room, dried persimmons with excellent sweetness are completed. In some rural areas of Japan, wind-hanging persimmons are made in the same way as many centuries ago. The persimmons are collected by hand, then peeled by workers. Immediately after peeling, the fruit stem is connected with a string. Farmers often tie several fruits along a string. Then, the string is hung outdoors so that the fruit is exposed to direct sunlight and wind. During this period, rain protection is very important, because if peeled persimmons get wet, they will start to rot. Every few days, they need to be massaged by hand to keep the texture even. Under the bright sunlight of Japanese autumn, along with gentle winds, persimmons change from bitter to sweet. Persimmons are dried for about 6 weeks to 9 weeks. After that, they are taken down and left outside for about 10 more days. By the end of the process, the fruit has reduced to about a quarter of its original weight and has become significantly smaller. Farmers will coat persimmons with a layer of fruit sugar to keep them from sticking during storage. The wind-hanging persimmon is now ready for consumption. In most parts of the world, tomato growing season begins in late spring or early summer. This machine can plow to a depth of 23.6 inches to loosen the soil. After removing weeds and crop residue, farmers improve soil drainage and aeration. Tomato planting spacing should be 18 to 24 inches between plants to ensure they are given plenty of growing space. Full sunlight for at least 8 hours a day is essential for healthy tomato plants. Although tomatoes can withstand cool weather, their growth will be slowed. At the same time, frost can become a problem for tomato plants, causing them to die. Tomatoes take 60 days to more than 100 days to harvest, depending on the variety grown. Farmers often choose tomato harvesting methods based on the fruit's ultimate use. Harvesting using mechanical machines like this is usually reserved for the sauce and concentrate manufacturing industry, because canned products need large quantities but do not require high quality or aesthetics. Plum tomatoes are grown and harvested in California, where 95% of America's processed tomatoes are grown. These plum tomatoes have fewer seeds, dense flesh, and less juice. It meets the right criteria to be able to produce a rich sauce. The harvest begins from late July to late September. Harvesters operate almost continuously in the fields. Farmers start harvesting at dawn until late at night, because ripe tomatoes don't wait for anyone. Once they turn red, farmers have 2 weeks to remove them from the field. This is what happens at a ketchup factory. Here the tomatoes are washed and steamed. Next, the tomatoes will be peeled and pureed to prepare tomato sauce. Sunflower are grown all over the world. According to the 2022 report, total global sunflower seed production exceeded 56 million tons. Russia and Ukraine are the 2 largest sunflower seed producers in the world, contributing about 55% of total world production. Sunflowers are usually sown in April and May. Farmers use seeders behind tractors to put sunflower seeds into the ground at a moderate depth and distance from each other. This method helps farmers save time and is suitable for large fields. The plant germinates in late spring and blooms between March and May. The average growing time of sunflowers is from 80 to 120 days. When in full bloom, the golden fields create a truly impressive scene. Harvesting sunflowers too early can result in unripe seeds, while waiting too long can cause the seeds to be eaten by birds. The best time to harvest sunflowers is when the petals begin to dry and fall to the ground. Mechanical harvesting of sunflowers has become the main method in modern, large-scale farming. While the combine is in motion, the machine's stem lifter picks up the sunflower heads, cuts them off the stem with the cutting unit, and feeds the sunflower heads into the threshing chamber of the combine. The particles will fall into the container of the transport vehicle on the side, while the rest of the sunflower plant, including stems and leaves, is chopped up for animal feed or compost. Mechanical harvesting is efficient, fast, and saves labor. However, it requires the right equipment and an experienced operator. Sunflower seeds are carefully selected to ensure only high-quality seeds are included in the extraction process. These sunflower seeds are washed and dried. Then they are put into the oil press. At this time, sunflower oil is still raw. This is not the final step. Oil purifiers are an important part in helping sunflower oil be produced to suit human consumption needs. Pumpkins are native to North America and are typically grown in late spring to early summer. The crop is mainly grown in the northern region of the United States. Pumpkins sprout and cover the fields with vines up to 30 feet long. They grow and develop strongly in hot and harsh conditions. Pumpkin is a fruit that symbolizes the change of seasons. Farmers who have grown pumpkins in Illinois for many years say the crop is vulnerable to extreme temperatures and rain. Too much rainfall can cause rot and even disease. Farmers do not sow seeds directly until the danger of frost has passed and the soil has warmed completely to 65 to 95 degrees F. After a few pumpkins have formed, pruning will help create ad space and focus the tree's energy on the fruit. From planting, pumpkins take about 120 days to harvest. When you observe that the skin of the pumpkin turns dark yellow and the skin is hard, it is a sign that the pumpkin is ripe and ready to harvest. Pumpkin production is a labor-intensive job. Every fall, about 35 to 45 men on the farm pick and pack 400 acres of pumpkins by hand. During harvesting, farmers leave 3 to 4 inches of the stem to increase storage time. Typically, pumpkins are ready to harvest in October. The perfect time to do this is when the pumpkin vines stop growing. Farmers will try to harvest pumpkins before heavy frost. To toughen the skin and increase the flavor, farmers can dry pumpkins in the field for a few more days. The pumpkins are then harvested using mechanical harvesting equipment. The harvester gently passes through the pumpkin beds to sweep up all the pumpkins lying on the ground. The conveyor belt brings just harvested pumpkins into containers next to the harvest truck. These two machines are doing work equivalent to the labor of about 20 workers. It helps pumpkin growers save costs and harvest time.